In my past life, my half-sister gave birth to a divine dragon and helped her husband ascend to the Dragon Emperor's throne. Meanwhile, I exhausted the royal weasel clan's forbidden arts and barely survived delivering a mere serpent. The crown prince despised our snake child's dullness as an embarrassment. When the serpent failed its millennium-long dragon transformation, he beheaded our child in rage. The shock killed me instantly. When I opened my eyes again, I'd returned to the day of the Dragon Prince's beast consort selection. Watching Crown Prince Cain firmly choose my half-sister Mira, I knew he'd also been reborn. He thought choosing Mira would guarantee a dragon heir to become the future king. Little did he know, being born without a dragon core made him incapable of impregnating any consort. The golden mice possess unparalleled reproductive abilities. We exist solely for breeding purposes. Which is why we're always treated like commodities to be selected. Common golden mice get chosen by ordinary beast clans, while our royal lineage has always been picked by various beast monarchs. My sister and I were sent to the Dragon King's palace for selection the moment we came of age this year. My heart ached terribly. Last lifetime Cain had chosen me, claiming only a legitimate daughter like me deserved him. Mira was taken by the third prince Dylan instead, later giving birth to an exceptionally gifted wormling that became the Dragon King's favorite. Yet all I bore for Cain was a serpentling. The Dragon King still favored him, granting a millennium for the hatchling to ascend as a true dragon, promising Cain the crown prince's title should it succeed. The little serpent proved dull-witted, failing its draconic metamorphosis after centuries of cultivation. Thus the eldest prince lost his claim to the dragon throne. Through tears I begged the prince for mercy, but he coldly beheaded our child without hesitation. My heart shattered with grief, and death took me soon after. Reborn at this moment, my heart still aches violently, watching Cain choose my half-sister Mira. Relief and anguish twist together like twin serpents in my chest. My precious serpent child trained so diligently and behaved so obediently, all just to earn a shred of his father's affection, yet the throne remained that man's sole obsession. Cain loathes our serpent child with visceral hatred, never knowing his own barrenness. That precious hatchling came only through the Golden Rat clan's forbidden arts, a ritual so perilous I failed 100 lifetimes before succeeding. I clenched my fists, forcing down the seething hatred. The image of Cain severing our child's head still haunts me, yet here I stand in the vast dragon palace, unmistakably reliving the day the fourth prince chose his beast consort. I stood in the grand hall with my three half-sisters, awaiting selection by the four dragon princes. The dragon emperor sat on high, smiling as he addressed his four sons. Our dragon bloodline struggles to endure, while the silk mice possess remarkable fertility. These four princesses are the beast consorts I've chosen for you. Let the eldest pick first. Dragon King Baron was already ancient. Having resorted to extraordinary means just to sire four sons, he placed immense value on lineage. He'd long declared that whoever bore him a dragon grandson would inherit his throne. The moment he finished speaking, Cain stepped forward, his gaze swept across us four sisters, icy when passing my third and fourth sisters, barely concealing disgust at me. Before resolutely settling on my second sister Mira, Cain failed to notice my trembling hands hidden in my sleeves, nor the pallor of my face. Father, I choose Mira to be my beast consort. Without hesitation, Cain took Mira's hand. Mira looked utterly astonished, her gentle gaze fluttering shyly toward Cain as she vividly displayed the coy, maidenly demeanor on her face. Seeing the determined ambition and gleam of triumph in Cain's eyes, I knew instantly, he had been reborn too. I glanced at Mira, who returned my look from the corner of her eye, her expression brimming with smug satisfaction. My mother is the principal wife of King Jinshu, making me his only legitimate daughter. All those born after me are merely concubine-born. Mira's mother has long coveted the title of principal wife, but the king has refused her. As the legitimate heir, Cain's selection made Mira feel superior, swelling her pride as she believed this outshone me. You're choosing Mira. Is this final? The Dragon King was perplexed. Cain was his rightful heir, and in his view, only a legitimate princess would be a proper match. Cain understood this principle. But memories of his past life stirred lingering revulsion. With resolute determination, he smiled and declared, Father, I've fallen for Mira at first sight. She's my choice. In his past life, he chose the noble-born daughter only to father a snake as his heir. The mockery followed him for centuries, costing him both dignity and the throne. Now reborn, why would he ever pick that useless Freya who only spawns serpent offspring? If this is your choice, so be it, take your beast queen and go. Seeing his resolve, the Dragon King honored his decision. Cain's choice didn't surprise me in the slightest. Just then, a figure cast a shadow before me as a gentle voice declared, "Father, I choose her." My eyes widened in shock at the newcomer, Prince Elliot, but he'd never taken a beastkin consort in our previous lifetime. I was puzzled, but my fate wasn't mine to decide. The Dragon King chuckled his approval. "So be it. Freya shall be yours, as the Mouse King's firstborn daughter. You've chosen well, my second son." Elliot reached out to me with a smile in his eyes. Though puzzled, I still placed my hand in his. Our Velvet Mice clan holds lowly status, possessing no remarkable traits beyond exceptional fertility. For dragons to take one of us as beast consorts, as my father would say, our ancestors must have kowtowed their foreheads bloody in the underworld to earn such fortune. The dragon clan reigns supreme, while our brocade mouse clan ranks at the very bottom. Elliot led me forward by the hand. Cain said with visible displeasure, "Little brother, won't you reconsider? This woman appears listless and frail, hardly suitable for bearing offspring of superior quality." Cain assumed his rebirth granted him complete understanding of me. Elliot had been the only one who never mocked him in their past life, a fact Cain clearly remembered. Elliot replied calmly, "I appreciate your concern, elder brother, as someone of frail constitution myself. Compatibility matters more to me than anything else." Cain frowned slightly. His younger brother's poor health was undeniable. In their past life, he'd likely dismissed him as unfit for producing heirs. While Cain had never mocked him for it, he'd hardly been in any position to judge. Cain's expression darkened as he spoke. "I merely offered my advice out of goodwill." The advice was given with good intentions. Whether Elliot chose to accept it mattered little. Cain's determination to claim the dragon throne this lifetime remained unshaken. Prince Dylan and Prince Nolan both chose their beast consorts in succession. Mira was originally Dylan's beast consort, but in this life Mia holds that title, while the youngest sister Lila was matched with Nolan. Very well, now that the selections are complete, return to the palace. May you all prove worthy and bring good news soon." The Dragon King watched as all four sons made their choices. With a smile, he waved them off after speaking, walking beside Elliot as he led me outside by the hand. I noticed his fingers were chilly, clear proof of his frail constitution. Our Golden Rat clan does possess some medical knowledge, yet remembering how I'd tended to Cain's health in my past life, enduring arcane agony for him, I had no intention of offering Elliot similar ministrations. The fate of our Golden Rat clan was never ours to decide. Reborn into this life, I simply wished to live quietly and peacefully. The moment Cain stepped out of the hall, he swept Mira off her feet in a bridal carry. Mira gasped in surprise before burying her blushing face against his chest. Cain strode away with booming laughter. Dylan and Nolan exchanged amused glances, big bros totally smitten at first sight. Elliot murmured in agreement, "That much is obvious." Cain looked positively frantic, as if he couldn't wait another moment. Only I knew the truth. He didn't care for Mira at all. In their past life, she'd borne him a dragonling, and now he was desperate to secure his claim as crown prince and future dragon king. The memory of my poor serpent child welled up within me, sudden hatred surging in my heart. Suddenly feeling a hand clasp mine, I snapped out of my thoughts to see Elliot smiling faintly. "Come," he said, "let's return to the palace." I looked into Elliot's eyes and saw the thoughts swirling within them. Lowering my gaze without a word, I obediently followed him. It's only natural that Elliot would want heirs, isn't it? He's just frail, not on death's door. It seemed only natural for him to aspire to the Dragon King's throne that ruled over all beast clans. I expected Elliot to claim me immediately, but after bringing me to his palace, he simply encouraged me to settle in, as the lady of the palace now. I had free rein to do as I pleased while he attended to other matters. That absence stretched into 3 long months. Over these 3 months, my initial nervousness gradually gave way to acceptance. I cultivated a kitchen garden within the palace grounds, tending to vegetables and fruits with my own hands. I overheard maids whispering about how dearly the crown prince cherished his beast consort. He collected countless rare treasures just to please Mira. He'd grow terribly anxious at Myra's slightest sneeze, summoning witch doctors every 3 days to check her pulse. He took Mira to beast folk markets, behaving like any ordinary couple. He treated Mira with extraordinary kindness. Whispers began circulating among the beast folk. A woman should marry someone like the crown prince, to find a soulmate and grow old together in devotion. I just smiled when I heard, in her past life, Mira conceived a child a year after marriage. Cain must have been patient throughout that year, yet in that same past life, it took me a full decade of marriage before I finally conceived my serpent child. I plucked a cucumber and carved it into the shape of a bird, offering it in memorial to my poor serpent child. In this life, I'm fated not to be his mother. I can't even utter an apology. I wonder if he resents me. Had I not been so insistent, he would never have come into this world to suffer. What's Freya up to? Elliot's voice came from behind me. I turned to see him approaching with a smile. I'd been so absorbed in the ritual that I hadn't noticed how long he'd been there, or whether he'd heard my whispered words. I forced a smile and replied, "Your Highness, I was performing celestial rites for the prosperity of the beastkin." I lied, but it doesn't matter anyway. As Elliot led me by hand toward the bedroom, my throat went dry. This wasn't something I looked forward to. Cain was never gentle with me. Every encounter left me in agony. When I struggled with infertility, he became downright cruel. After I became pregnant with the serpent child, he never touched me again. The mere thought of this fills me with dread, but I could never say no to Elliot. "Freya, I'm sorry for neglecting you during that urgent official business. Please don't hold it against me," Elliot murmured softly. I shook my head. "I'm not angry." Not that I dared to be angry. A lowly golden rat like me had no right to anger. Elliot pulled me onto the bed. I was stiff as a board, yet he didn't make a single move. But from that night onward, we shared the same bed every evening. Elliot would help me tend the vegetable garden, even taking me to the market to buy more seeds. Another 6 months passed, and our interactions grew increasingly effortless. When Mia and Lila both got pregnant, the Dragon King was overjoyed, and promptly urged Mira and me to put in more effort. Though mortified, I dared not disobey the Dragon King's letter, offering repeated assurances of our diligence. Truth be told, Elliot and I still hadn't consummated our marriage after 9 months together. The Dragon King's fertility blessing didn't disrupt our routine. Elliot and I continued our quiet life as usual. To my surprise, rumors about Elliot and me started circulating in town. They say a gentle, enduring companionship like flowing water is just as precious. If you're looking for a husband, the second prince is the ideal choice. Some even drew comparisons between the crown prince and the second prince, which is truly better, unbridled passion or gentle refinement. The whole thing bored me terribly. Elliot was clearly the better man, refined and considerate, never pushing me when he sensed my reluctance these past months. What I never expected was running into Cain when Elliot took me shopping for pumpkin seeds. When we ran into each other, Cain suggested we have dinner together. Mira was radiant with success, adorned with exquisite jewelry and glowing with health. She'd grown even more beautiful, leaning against Cain with both a mature woman's allure and a girlish charm. The entire meal became their stage for public displays of affection. Elliot and I were much quieter, eating in silence with Elliot occasionally responding to Cain. "Cain, I'd like to talk with my sister for a bit. Would you mind waiting for me?" As we finished dinner and prepared to leave, Mira coquettishly asked Cain. Cain gave me an indifferent glance and nodded. "Myra's just being kind. Why shouldn't she greet her elder sister? Go ahead, I'll catch up with my second brother too." Cain and Elliot left. Mira said to me triumphantly, "Sister, do you see, look how blissful my life is now. Father is already considering elevating my mother to the position of primary consort." I replied indifferently, "Oh, congratulations then, just the official consort of the Rat King from the Brocade Rat clan, nothing extraordinary." Mira pursed her lips and added, "The Crown Prince promised that if I bear his heir, he'd bestow the dragon's fortune upon me for rebirth." I replied calmly, "Well, good luck with that. I wonder if she'll still be smiling when she finds out the Crown Prince is infertile." Chapter 2, Sister, do you know how much the Crown Prince despises you? Mira shot me an indifferent look, clearly displeased. I rolled my eyes. "I'm not his beast consort. Why should I care if he dislikes me? Third and fourth sisters are both pregnant, yet your belly remains still. Could you be barren? Even we golden mice, famed for fertility, aren't immune to mishaps. Or so they say." stamping her foot in anger. Mira switched tactics to attack me. I sneered in retort, and what about you? After exhausting every trick in the book with no results. Could it be the crown prince is infertile? Mira turned pale instantly, snarling viciously. How dare you spout such nonsense? You're cursing the crown prince. Mira was so furious she wanted to hit me, because I'd seen right through her. She too harbored doubts about the crown prince's fertility, though she'd tried to outshine me at every turn. If he truly was barren, she'd never surpass me in this lifetime. I grabbed her hand and shoved her violently. Mira shrieked. And the crown prince charged at me like a madman. One swing sent me flying. That's the difference in strength. But I didn't crash to the ground. Instead, I was caught in strong arms as Elliot asked with concern, "Are you all right?" I shook my head. Cain had already pulled Mira into his embrace, glaring daggers at me. "How dare you lay a hand on Mira, Freya? Are you blind? Can't you see she was about to hit me first?" A surge of bitter resentment churned within me. Elliot said solemnly, "If your highness disputes this, let us seek our father the emperor's judgment." Mira explained timidly, "It was only because sister cursed your infertility, doomed us to childlessness, that I lost my temper." Cain's face twisted in rage. "You venomous witch, how dare you hex me?" The dragon prince's oppressive aura weighed on me. Offspring had always been Cain's sore spot. No wonder he was furious. In our past life, mere taunts about his serpent child would send him into violent rages. He never once acknowledged our serpent child. Watching him now, bitter hatred surged through my heart. "Elder brother, mind your words." Elliot shielded me behind him, keeping me from facing Cain as he stepped forward to confront him. Cain was absolutely livid, yet Elliot turned to ask me what had truly happened. Feeling moved, I decided to speak my mind. Elliot turned to Cain and declared, "If your highness cannot judge this matter fairly, we shall take it to the emperor. He will administer justice. Your beast consort may be your beloved, but mine is no worthless weed for you to scorn. In my heart, Freya shines like the moon, and I will defend her to the end." "Humph, would you turn against your own brother for a woman? Don't say I didn't warn you. That plain-faced girl bears the mark of misfortune. Expecting her to bear your heir is pure delusion, since you care nothing for fraternal bonds. Don't come crying with regrets later." Cain wore a mocking sneer, his gaze dripping with disdain and loathing as he looked at me. He fancies himself some mighty, virile man, as if his sheer luck alone made it possible for me to conceive a serpent in my past life. As for Elliot, his frail constitution meant he couldn't even give me the chance to conceive. Understanding Cain's implication, I could only find it laughable. Elliot's slender frame shielded me as he retorted coldly, "Spare your concern, brother, even childless, I'd never regret it. Since you've energy to spare, I await your happy news. After all, our second and third brothers are soon to be fathers. With father's high expectations resting on you, don't keep him waiting too long for disappointment." With that, Elliot whisked me away without a second thought for whether Cain might burst with rage. My mind was in turmoil as he pulled me along, his words echoing relentlessly in my thoughts. Even without an heir, I would never regret this. Would he truly have no regrets? When we reached a quiet spot, Elliot said guiltily, "Freya, I'm sorry you had to endure that. My health hasn't fully recovered, and I don't want to let you down. Could you wait for me 3 more years?" I nodded repeatedly. 3 years? I'd wait a decade if needed. I looked at Elliot and asked, "If I'm truly infertile and you're left without heirs, would you really never regret it?" Elliot's ears flushed red as he replied tenderly, "Our golden hamster lineage is blessed with exceptional fertility. If there's any issue, it must lie with me. I'd be grateful if you didn't hold it against me. How could I ever blame you?" Tears were practically gushing from my eyes. Exactly, such an obvious truth, yet in my past life it burdened me with overwhelming guilt. After years without conceiving, Cain wanted me to admit it was my fault. To spare his pride, I agreed, telling everyone I had fertility issues, an anomaly among our goldenrod mice kin. Cain and others scorned me. Yet our lineage is renowned for exceptional fertility. How could I possibly be barren? Yet that absurd lie has been branded upon me for life. When I finally bore a serpent child, Cain seized the chance to blame my inferior blood for the outcome. Mira birthed a dragonling, third sister a water serpent, fourth sister a python, while my child remained but a humble snake. Elliot didn't know why I was crying, but he gently wiped my tears and soothed me with soft whispers, From that moment on, I started making an effort to understand Elliot. I discovered he had many admirable qualities. His smile was ethereal, like an immortal's. He was courteous and had a passion for reading. He could till the soil and kindle flames with equal skill. He also played the piano and painted. He'd praise my tea-making, my baking, this quiet dance of affection between us. For 2 whole years, Elliot and I grew closer every day, sharing a bed, content even in our quietest moments together. For the first time, I understood what it truly means to love someone, the bittersweet taste of affection. Rumors still reach my ears from time to time. Word has it the crown prince quarreled with his beastkin consort. Shockingly, she's frail and likely infertile, an anomaly among the goldenrod mice clan. Mira began taking various medications to regulate her health. Amidst everyone's sighs, comparisons were inevitably drawn between Elliot and Cain, the beast folk commoners would say. The second prince's beast consort is also barren, yet their household remains harmonious. How does that work? They say a woman's face reveals whether her household thrives. With serene grace, I often purchase seeds or share surplus produce with elderly beast folk villagers who praise my kindness by comparing me to the divine maiden. I frequently visit my third and fourth sisters, bringing them fresh produce. Dragonkin pregnancies last 3 years. Though they haven't delivered yet, their bellies have grown noticeably. During my visits, they'd have me touch their swollen abdomens, believing it would bless me with fertility. I enjoy feeling their bellies for the movement of life within, not because I desire pregnancy myself. Not that it needs explaining. Elliot's poor health is undeniable. I may never get the chance to be a mother in this lifetime. After all, I paid such a steep price to conceive my serpent child in my past life. I couldn't possibly endure that suffering again. Some hardships only need to be endured once. Living quietly with Elliot like this isn't so bad after all. As for my second sister Mira, who knows how long it's been since she last stepped outside. This summer has been exceptionally scorching. I've grown some crimson melons. Their flesh is grainy yet sweet, absolutely perfect chilled for the season. I love opening one and saving half for when Elliot gets back from work. We'd sit on the wicker chairs in the yard, scooping it up spoonful by spoonful. Just as I'd lowered a melon into the well and was washing my hands, a maid announced, "Your Highness, the crown princess has arrived and awaits your presence in the main hall." Mira actually came looking for me, after our falling out. I never thought I'd see her again in this lifetime, yet here she was, reaching out to me. After some thought, I decided to meet her anyway. The moment we met, my heart skipped a beat. Mira's cheeks were hollowed out from weight loss, her whole being radiating gloom. The darkness in her eyes told me instantly she'd been through hell. "Sister, you must be feeling quite pleased with yourself seeing me like this, aren't you?" Mira glared at me venomously and demanded. I sighed in exasperation. "Wasn't it you who came to my home demanding my attention? If this is all you wanted to say, we have nothing further to discuss. You may leave." Mira's fierce expression melted into tears as she pleaded, "Sister, I beg for your mercy. Tell me how to conceive the dragon heir. If I fail again, I'll perish. We share the same blood. Father has consented, so long as you impart the secret arts. It was all my fault. Please forgive me this once." Mira wept pitifully, her illusions shattered. She'd realized Cain had only ever used her. His affection vanished the moment she failed to conceive within a year. 2 years of infertility made her life increasingly difficult. Now approaching 3 years, she even felt there was no way out. It was Cain who suggested her sister might know fertility secrets, as such knowledge was reserved for legitimate heirs, a status Mira lacked. Swallowing her pride, Mira came begging. She resented Cain's cruelty after all she'd endured, yet still ached for his bygone tenderness. The root of all troubles was the child. Wouldn't conceiving sooner solve everything? I looked at Mira and sighed. "Little sister, that forbidden technique will wreak havoc on your body and bring unbearable pain. Are you truly prepared to endure it?" Seeing me relent, Mira fell to her knees in tears and nodded. "I can endure anything, anything at all, if it means I can conceive a child." Little sister, though our golden rat clan holds humble status, even beast folk have their laws. If you petition for divorce, the Dragon King must consent. After all, the infertility lies with him, not you. Recalling my past life's suffering, my heart softened despite Mira's constant rivalry. Back then, I willingly endured hardship out of love. But Mira feels no real affection for Cain. She only covets his power. Being chosen by him is her misfortune. I spoke bluntly. If she abandoned her pursuit of status, she could easily find a worthy partner elsewhere. Mira laughed through her tears, never expecting that everyone would accuse her of being a freak who couldn't bear the dragon Heir. Only her most despised elder sister stood by her, wiping her tears. Mira pleaded, "Sister, I was wrong before, but I can't give up this life of luxury. Please, tell me how." With a sigh, I replied, "Very well, I'll tell you, by sealing the dragon's essence through arcane methods. Conception is guaranteed after 100 days. Yet the agony endured during this period rivals being disemboweled 1,000 times. Persevere through the ordeal, and your wish shall be granted, but the ritual must continue uninterrupted. Missing even a single day's infusion of dragon essence will undo all progress. In my past life, Cain gave me the cold shoulder. It took countless failures before I finally succeeded. Even now, the memory of that pain makes my hair stand on end. Unaware of the gravity of the situation, Mira thanked me and left. Mira came like a gust of wind, here one moment and gone the next. Life carried on as usual. Another year has passed. Third sister gave birth to a dragon serpent, while fourth sister delivered twin python offspring. The dragon king was overjoyed and bestowed lavish rewards upon them. Then came news of Myra's pregnancy. I don't know how she endures it, but she's expecting, and I genuinely wish her well. Now the dragon king's fertility blessing was bestowed upon me alone, with Mira pregnant. She and Cain have reconciled. People began pitying me. What good is the emperor's favor without an heir? The rumors circulating among the common folk began shifting as well. Back then, I was picking winter melons in the garden. They make the most delicious soup, especially with bone broth. Elliot and I have grown closer. Just like any ordinary married couple, we paid no mind to the gossip outside. We simply lived our lives. After dinner, Elliot said he wanted to take me somewhere and even blindfolded me on purpose. I sensed the maid had changed my clothes. He often surprised me, and while I'd grown accustomed to it, anticipation still bubbled within me, my lips curling upward uncontrollably. The maid led me into a chamber. When Elliot removed the red blindfold himself, I was stunned. The jubilant place was decorated like a wedding chamber. I looked at Elliot. He was actually wearing traditional wedding attire. Glancing down, I realized I was dressed in the same ceremonial robes. Pouring wine, Elliot smiled and said, "Freya, these are human marital rights. After 4 years together, I hope this ceremony isn't too late." Tears of joy streamed down as I shook my head. Of course it wasn't too late. I know Elliot is recuperating, and I'm actually all prepared, just waiting for him to make the first move. But when the day finally came, I still got nervous, but Elliot is so gentle that I never had to endure any hardship. The days that followed were so sweet, they felt intoxicating. I love being with Elliot, even if we don't have children. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, Mira gave birth. On the day the child was born, she and Cain had their most explosive argument yet, when Mira gave birth to an earthworm. Cain flew into a rage, striking her while accusing her of adultery. In her distraught state, Mira carried the child to the Dragon King, demanding before countless beast folk that he administer a paternity test to prove the truth. The commotion drew everyone's attention. As Elliot moved to intervene, I grabbed his arm. After years of marriage, he understood me instantly and brought me along without hesitation. 7 years later, we found ourselves back in the Dragon King's hall. Mira knelt on the ground clutching the tiny earthworm, while Cain's face darkened with barely contained rage. Second sister and third sister held their children's hands, watching the scene with trepidation. I begged the Dragon King to judge fairly and restore our innocence. Sobbing, Mira pleaded with a broken heart as Cain continued to slander her. Cain clenched his fists in fury. "I'm a dragon. How could my offspring be a mere earthworm? This creature might never even develop sentience. How dare you lie to me?" The greater the hope, the deeper the disappointment. He was fully prepared to father a baby dragon. No other offspring would satisfy him. Myra's reproductive potential was undoubtedly exceptional, otherwise she couldn't have birthed dragon offspring in her past life. I recall her dragon offspring had the lowest innate talent among their kind, yet his starting point in cultivation surpassed what most beastkin could achieve in a lifetime. The moment the dragonet was born, Dylan ascended to half-Dragon King status. Cain chose Mira in this lifetime with sky-high expectations, hope spanning 2 incarnations, but this wretched earthworm has become his greatest humiliation. This pitiful earthworm is just as wretched as my poor little snake. Under the Dragon King's paternity magic, Cain's bloodline quietly merged into the earthworm's forehead as it slept more peacefully than ever. Cain staggered back pale-faced, roaring in denial, "Impossible, this can't be." His child should have been a dragon hatchling, not this lowly earthworm. That wretched thing would never achieve dragon form, not even in 1,000 years of cultivation. The Dragon King's face darkened. Part of him actually wished Mira had truly been unfaithful. Mira burst into hysterical laughter. "See for yourselves, my son is the crown prince's bloodline, the infertility lies with him. We golden mice have the strongest reproductive prowess, had I not been shackled to such worthless stock." Would Mira ever have birthed an earthworm? Since Cain showed no mercy, she'd return the favor in kind. The dragon prince is nothing but a worthless cripple. No power, no dragon core. Ha 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 ha. Mira laughed like a woman possessed. The injustice burned. After enduring such agony to bear his child, all she reaped was his revulsion. This she could never accept. Why must she shoulder this infamy while he strikes her with self-righteous blows? Mira completely exposed Cain's shameful secrets. Watching this, I could only sigh. This is the difference between love and indifference. Remembering my foolish past life suddenly made me nauseous. I gagged aloud, and in the tense atmosphere, everyone turned to look at me. Mira said with a smile, "Sister, you find it disgusting too, don't you?" Cain fixed me with a deathly cold stare. He didn't know I'd also been reborn, but that didn't stop him from despising me. Cain sneered and spat. "You filthy wench have no right to mock me. At least useless Mira bore the dragon's heir, while you couldn't even produce a fart. What gives you the right?" Elliot's face darkened. "Brother, the whole world knows my frail constitution makes me incapable of fathering heirs. Why must you take your anger out on my wife? The failure lies with me, not her." "You," Cain seethed with frustration, barely stopping himself from calling Elliot a fool mid-sentence. I retched again, prompting Cain to storm toward me with a thunderous expression. Elliot moved to intercept, but I suddenly vomited with a loud blarg. I was vomiting violently when Cain froze in his tracks. While Elliot patted my back with concern and called for water, he immediately begged the Dragon King for forgiveness, pleading that no punishment would fall upon me. Touched as I was, the nausea wouldn't subside. These symptoms suggest the second prince's consort may be with child. "Fetch the royal physician at once," someone spoke up, snapping everyone out of their daze. The shaman arrived promptly. The shaman took my pulse, alternating between furrowing his brows and hissing through his teeth. This made Elliot extremely anxious. "What's wrong with Freya? Spit it out already." The shaman straightened his expression and announced, "Congratulations, second prince, the royal consort is with child." I was just counting the pulse patterns to determine the number. Elliot was stunned. I was stunned too. I hadn't used any arcane methods with Elliot, yet here I was, pregnant with multiples. Cain's face darkened as well. The Dragon King asked with barely contained excitement, "Have you counted properly? How many dragon pulses does the second prince's consort carry?" The witch doctor wiped his non-existent cold sweat, carefully taking the pulse before gasping in shock. "And 9 dragon pulses, 9 offspring in 1 pregnancy." The entire hall collectively drew a sharp breath. Only Elliot's expression remained stormy and unreadable, shielding me. Elliot glared at Cain and said coldly, "Brother, keep your distance from Freya. My children don't take kindly to you." Elliot's gaze turned icy. To him, my pregnancy had been smooth until today. Seeing Cain made me vomit violently. Clearly, our unborn child rejected him. Cain clenched his fists, feeling the weight of everyone's humiliating stares before storming off in shame. Mira gave me an inscrutable look while holding her child, then quietly slipped away. "Second prince, your beast consort is carrying multiple offspring. Spare yourself these 3 years, attend to nothing else, just stay by her side until the birth." The Dragon King rejoiced. 9 heirs from a single birth, unprecedented in draconic history where triplets were the limit. Lavish rewards flowed to the palace like water. Elliot and I returned to the palace, where he tended to me with utmost care. He worried I'd lose my appetite or vomit, but after returning from the Dragon King's temple, my nausea completely disappeared. Elliot sighed while touching my belly. "This really disgusts him. doesn't it? If even our baby dislikes him, we simply won't see him anymore. Freya, I'm so happy. I'm going to be a father. How many babies are we having? I'll need to come up with 9 names then. There's so much to prepare. I'd better get started right away. Elliot's eyes grew slightly red as he looked at me, voice trembling. Freya, you've been through so much. I shook my head with a smile. It didn't feel particularly difficult to me, because beast folk pregnancies are different from human ones. If humans gave birth to 9 babies at once, their bellies would probably burst, let alone the hardship involved. But we beast folk are naturally polyovulatory. Single births only occur when bloodlines can't sustain multiple conceptions. Our bodies can easily handle litters of over a dozen. The pregnancy never felt burdensome. Elliot's attentive care made me feel utterly secure. When my belly grew larger in the later stages, he'd often press close and talk to our baby. I never thought I'd become a mother, and I'm thrilled about having 9 children, as my due date approached. The Dragon King brought us to his palace. The entire beastkin race had their eyes on this birth. When I went into labor, all my younger sisters came. My 3rd and 4th sisters reassured me not to be afraid, saying it wouldn't hurt much. Mira wore a complicated expression but still managed to wish me a safe delivery. Thunder rumbled outside as ominous clouds loomed over the dragon palace. Elliot came to stay by my side. The heavens show strange signs, foretelling this birth shall be extraordinary. The whole realm awaits my delivery. The Dragon King even brought out divine spirit fruits to replenish my vitality. My mind grows hazy. Why would there be thunder during childbirth? Last time when Mira gave birth to the dragonling, there was thunder. My mind reeled. This can't be happening again. Could one of these 9 children be a little dragon? The pain was so intense I couldn't think straight. It felt like my body was being torn apart. I heard the midwife gasp in shock. But I didn't even have the strength to open my eyes. When I woke, Elliot was keeping watch with red-rimmed eyes. I smiled at him. Now why is the second prince crying again? Elliot choked up. You've been through so much. What about our child? I asked with a trembling voice. Seeing Elliot's tender care for me put my heart at ease. Elliot had someone bring the child to me. When I saw 9 golden dragon hatchlings, I was speechless with shock. But coming to my senses, I realized this wasn't without precedent. In my past life, I bore Cain a small serpent, while Mira gave birth to a feeble earthworm for him in this lifetime. In her past life, Mira gave birth to a white dragon hatchling. I've birthed 9 golden dragons myself. My breeding potential surpasses Mira's. Cain ruined my previous life. Though Mira had excellent aptitude too, that bastard Cain destroyed her as well. Hush now, Freya. Don't cry. We'll never go through childbirth again. Elliot's heart ached. Childbearing takes such a heavy toll on the mother's body. I nodded through tears, relieved we wouldn't go through this again. As I looked at the 9 dragonlings, I noticed the smallest one had a black dot on its head. Immediately I called out, "Bring Asher to me." Is that my poor little snake? There's a dark spot on his head too. Just thinking about my snake makes me tear up, as if sensing my presence. Asher opened his eyes and nuzzled his little dragon head against my chin. Whether he's my snake from a past life or not, I'll always cherish him. With these 9 dragonlings in the royal line, Elliot was officially named Crown Prince. Thus I became the Crown Princess. After my recovery, I accompanied Elliot to the Grand Hall to express gratitude. The Dragon King asked what reward I desired. I could feel every eye in the hall upon me. I knelt down and prayed devoutly. Freya seeks a blessing for our Golden Mice clan. May we achieve enlightenment, earn our place among beast folk, and no longer face scorn from humankind. Rats are the weakest among beasts, and hunted vermin in human lands. In our royal rat lineage, every female exists solely for breeding servitude. The Dragon King holds the beast tribe's royal mandate. His blessing would grant our rat folk a shred of sovereignty, ending our wretchedness forever. The world has 4 immortal beings: the fox, weasel, snake, and hedgehog immortals. How I dreamed that we golden mice could ascend to such divinity. The Dragon King fell into deep thought, and the entire dragon palace grew utterly silent. After a long pause, the Dragon King spoke. Have you no personal wishes to ask for yourself? I shook my head. This is Freya's sole wish. After a long silence, the Dragon King finally spoke. Very well, I grant this. Henceforth, the golden rat shall bear royal fortune among beasts, and among humankind. it shall be revered as the Grey Immortal. One of the 5 sacred spirits, I smiled gratefully in acknowledgement. Upon learning of this, my father the king sent precious gifts to express his gratitude. The Golden Rat clan now honors me as their foremost Grey Immortal matriarch. My days have been smooth sailing. A decade later, all 9 of my children were running around everywhere. Another major event shook the entire beastkin race. Mira bore a dragon child with the serpent folk, and her divorce from Cain became a full-blown court scandal. Cain was radiating dark energy. He shot me a look full of hatred, then turned the same venomous glare toward Mira, holding the child defiantly. Mira snapped, "If you're useless, why shouldn't I find someone else? There's nothing left between us. You won't even glance at my Theo. After years of your abuse, I've had enough." Theo, once that scrawny little worm, had grown into a chubby, adorable boy, though simple-minded. Myra's devoted care made him universally endearing. "You always say you wouldn't be this humiliated if you hadn't chosen me. Well, I've wanted to say the same. Had I not married you, I might have borne a dragon heir. My offspring with a flood dragon were already superior serpents, so with a true dragon, they'd surely be dragons too. Though I'm no match for my sister, my breeding potential is hardly lacking." Mira lashed out at Cain with vicious humiliation. Cain turned pale, seemingly too afraid to face the situation, and fled without looking back. Cain and Mira divorced. She took away that little earthworm Cain never liked. The Dragon King decreed their divorce, and from then on they went their separate ways. To that untalented little earthworm, the Dragon King also bestowed many treasures. Knowing his grandson would never become a dragon, he still wished him a peaceful life. Mira was heading to the Dragonkin territory and came to visit me at the Eastern Palace. When they met again, she had countless emotions swirling inside. But all condensed into a single sentence: "Sis, I was too immature back then. Please don't hold it against me. Cain's gone mad and might come after you, so be careful. He keeps babbling about past lives, which I find ridiculous. But if reincarnation were real, whichever sister got chosen would have drawn the short straw." Mira felt no love for Cain, so she could walk away clean. I smiled as I saw her off, wishing her safe travels. In my past life, I begged for Cain's love. That's why both me and my poor serpent child met such wretched ends. But not this lifetime. I may love Elliot, yet there'll always be a space inside me that bleeds for myself alone. I dismissed Myra's warning, confident that Cain couldn't possibly breach the Crown Prince's residence, unless he staged a rebellion, but without an heir. What would be the point? To my astonishment, Cain didn't stage a rebellion. He infiltrated the compound instead. He didn't lay a hand on me, but the guilt and remorse in his eyes left me perplexed. He flashed me a bittersweet smile and said, "Freya, you should know, I'm reborn. In our past life, I chose you. You bore me a serpent child, and I failed to cherish you. This lifetime, I've strayed again. But it doesn't matter. When I die, I'll restart, after you and our child perished last time. I took my own life. That's how this cycle began. Believe me, Freya, next time, I'll ask for nothing but you. Just grant me this. I'll cherish our serpent child dearly. Our family will live happily together." With those words, Cain drew the blade across his throat. His head rolled onto the ground. Yet he still gazed at me with a tender, remorseful smile. His body still twitched. I knew some remnant of consciousness lingered. My voice turned icy as I spoke. "Cain, there won't be another afterlife. Your rebirth wasn't due to any extraordinary ability of yours, but because of my poor serpent child. He's on the verge of dragon ascension and mastered temporal reversal. It was him who brought us back. In this lifetime, I thank you for sparing me marriage. My serpent and I will live joyfully. While you'll never see another reincarnation." I watched Cain's lips tremble, his eyes wide with what might have been fury, remorse, or some other emotion I couldn't decipher. But I wasn't lying to him. There would be no next life for us. Asher is that serpent child. He used temporal reversal to resurrect Cain and me because we're his parents. But the price is this: if I don't bear life in this lifetime, Snake Baby will never be born again. Thank heavens for divine justice. Cain's suicide in the Eastern Palace caused barely a ripple. Elliot reported it to the Dragon King immediately upon returning. Cain's body was taken and buried in Dragon Valley. All returned to tranquility. Asher is the youngest, yet the most sensible. Elliot often says, You and Asher seem like you've known each other in a past life. He always knows how to comfort you, despite being the youngest brother. He's been looking after his mischievous older siblings since childhood, watching the children playing happily in the distance. My eyes grew slightly moist as I told Elliot, you should show Asher more love. He thrives on your praise, my precious serpent child. In this lifetime you'll have a father who adores you and will always sing your praises. Elliot chuckled in agreement. Absolutely. Elliot led me toward the children. The sunlight cast our blissful silhouettes upon the ground. Story 2. It wasn't until the apocalypse that I realized I had been tricked into a sham marriage. My husband and I had been married for 6 months, but his mistress was already 8 months pregnant. Enduring such torment, I decided to end it all with them. Fortunately, fate gave me another chance. In this new life, I built a fortress with my sister and our parents as the apocalypse raged on. Sophia, could you please eat less? After all, the more we eat, the less we have. I'm pregnant now. I can't starve my child, the woman in front of me said in a pitiful tone, making me feel nauseous. Having not eaten for 2 days, I glared at her, wishing I could kill her and the man next to her right then and there. I had been married to Adrian for 6 months. Yet this woman was almost 8 months pregnant. I had been deceived by these scoundrels. Only at the apocalypse did I finally see the true colors of this family. So much for true love and vows. It was all for my money. When the apocalypse came, Adrian, his parents, and I were trapped in the luxurious house I bought. Early on, a young man drove into our upscale neighborhood with a pregnant woman, his sister. Adrian acted nobly, insisting on letting them in because saving lives is crucial. I thought he was kind-hearted, but it was all nonsense. He was only trying to save his mistress and the child she was carrying. The woman was brought by her own brother. They were all cut from the same cloth. Within a few days, as the situation worsened outside, they stopped pretending and demanded that I humble myself and serve their family of 5. I refused, and they beat me. Lily, the pregnant woman, even suggested they shouldn't feed me, living in my house, eating my food. Yet they still humiliated me. I was determined not to bow down to these scoundrels. If I bowed down this time and became their servant, next time, without food, I feared I might become their food. At that moment, I stared at them fiercely, a plan forming in my mind. If I couldn't live, neither would they. What's with that look? You can't get pregnant. So what's wrong with taking care of Lily? Adrian, you need to control her. She wouldn't survive without us, his mother said sharply. While his father looked on in disgust, I smirked coldly. Scum, a whole family of scum. After enduring a few kicks from the woman's brother, I lay quietly on the ground, treated as if I didn't exist. They all doted on the woman's belly, looking quite pleased with themselves. I waited, in the dead of night, as everyone slept unsuspectingly. I endured the pain, bit through the ropes binding my wrists, and crept to the door. I opened it for the monsters outside. They thought I was too scared to die. Unfortunately, they were wrong. Amidst the agony of being mauled by zombies, I heard the cries of this despicable family and felt immense satisfaction. When I regained consciousness, I was stunned by the small rental room before me. The date on the digital clock showed it was a year before the apocalypse. I picked up my phone, which was surprisingly turned off during the day. A bad feeling washed over me. As I turned it on, the phone nearly crashed from an overload of messages and calls. It turned out this was after my massive lottery winnings had been maliciously disclosed. A year before the apocalypse, I had won 10 million in the lottery, amounting to several million after taxes. As a result of suddenly coming into wealth overnight, someone envied me enough to leak my information, even claiming that my family was already well off and that I was kind and gentle, planning to donate all the money. No sooner had I received the money than distant relatives and friends, who were hardly connected to me, had already planned how to spend it. During this time, my boyfriend Adrian, who had been lukewarm towards me for years, suddenly started showing concern and affection, pretending to be deeply in love with me regardless of wealth or poverty. He deceived me so thoroughly that I even thought I couldn't marry anyone but him. In the end, I was indeed fooled into marrying him, but this time, I definitely won't be fooled again. I want to spend the end of days with my family, staying far away from that worthless man and his despicable family. As for revenge, if an opportunity arises, I'll naturally take my revenge, even if no opportunity comes, considering the dilapidated apartment his family rents on the first floor. It likely won't survive the first day of the apocalypse. Although I wasn't physically hungry, the spiritual hunger from enduring the apocalypse for too long drained me of the energy to think further. I ran to cook myself a huge pot of instant noodles, eating until I couldn't anymore. The feeling of hunger was truly terrifying. My body felt weak, my mind empty, with only the sensation of hunger. At my hungriest, I crazily wanted to devour anything I could stuff into my mouth. In this life, I absolutely must not repeat the same mistakes. Going home, I packed my bags and bought a ticket. I wanted to be with my family. After all, I had already resigned from my job due to harassment, so I had no ties holding me back. As I walked downstairs, I unexpectedly saw Adrian coming from a distance. Taking advantage of him not noticing me, I quickly hid. Coincidentally, he stopped not far from me while on the phone. "Lily, you know she won the lottery, just keep her fooled. And the money will be ours, right? You agreed to this plan from the start. Don't worry, I only love you." The only reason I was with her before was because her family's factory made them financially comfortable. Even if she doesn't fall for it, you've already leaked the news about the lottery, haven't you? If she doesn't fall for it, just ruin her reputation. I listened, grinding my teeth in anger, but unexpectedly, after finishing the call, he didn't leave, and another call came through. This time, his tone was harsh. "Amelia, we're done. I should have broken up with you after graduation, so stop bothering me." He hung up right after saying that. Amelia was another classmate from our university. I never imagined Adrian was playing the field so extensively, juggling 3 relationships. Disgusting, seeing him heading towards where I lived. I didn't want to stay a moment longer and quickly took a taxi to leave. Day and night, I arrived home the next morning. My family owns a small canning factory in the town. It's not large, but it provides a good income. We're not extremely wealthy, but we live comfortably. During university, I also spent money without care until my parents cut off my allowance, which was a wake-up call. But now, thinking back, Adrian probably pursued me in university because I was so frivolous with money. After all, over the years, the financial support I gave him wasn't a small amount. It was noon when I arrived, and both my parents were at home. They were shocked to see me return so suddenly. The matter of the apocalypse couldn't be kept secret. We had to mobilize the whole family to build a safe shelter for the coming year. "Mom and Dad, there's something I must tell you." After lunch, I explained everything about my second chance at life and the impending apocalypse happening in a year. As expected, my parents couldn't believe it, but for some reason, my memory has been exceptionally good since my rebirth. On the way home, I had already made a list, not of apocalypse supplies, but of major events that were about to happen. I handed the list to my parents, telling them these were the events that would soon occur. One of the most immediate and memorable was the collapse of a newly built bridge abroad. My parents clearly didn't believe me, but at that moment, my thoughts were clear, and I even presented a list as proof. I didn't seem insane. Thanks to the list, my parents couldn't help but check several times when the incident happened as they watched the news. But the truth is, I did indeed foresee it. My parents are a bit superstitious, especially my father, who often worships gods for his business dealings. That very day, they contacted my sister Isabella, asking her to come back from her job abroad to discuss the situation. Luckily, I had already been in touch with Isabella beforehand. As soon as the news broke, she couldn't sit still and was already at the airport waiting for her flight when our parents called. Unexpectedly, our family gathered together outside of any holiday season. Just a few hours before, another event on my list, an unexpected earthquake in a certain country, also occurred as scheduled. My father decisively said we needed to find a place safe from zombies to stockpile supplies and live. My mother pulled out the household accounts, and I brought out my savings, including some lottery winnings. Isabella did the same with her salary card. I sneakily glanced at my parents' savings, and the long string of digits was a shock to my long-held belief that we were not wealthy. Though I couldn't see the details clearly, it was definitely in the tens of millions. Isabella thought we should move to an island, but I felt that since we were still inland and unfamiliar with other places, it could be risky exposing our end-of-days preparations, so I disagreed. Our parents thought for a moment and also disagreed. Mom felt that since our relatives and friends were all here, we should still help if we could. Dad frowned, neither agreeing nor disagreeing, afraid that my mother might truly become too altruistic in a crisis. I quickly spoke up and recounted my experiences of the apocalypse. Isabella also tried hard to persuade our parents. She had held back from telling anyone about the news since she received it, fearing it might cause trouble. Dad chuckled and said, "Don't worry, our family isn't foolish. Even before you were born, we had been duped enough. Your mom has a good heart, but she won't do thankless tasks." Sure enough, Mom said, "I was thinking, once we've gathered enough supplies, we could find an excuse to distribute some to relatives and our factory workers, just to fulfill our moral obligations." Isabella and I exchanged a look and agreed. After a discussion, we concluded that living underground would be safer. We had two options. One was to go to an old house in the countryside that had a basement, but it could be difficult to keep activities from the neighbors there. The other was to buy a nearby house with a basement and reinforce it. After much thought, we decided to prepare locally, as the factory couldn't just stop operating. While Dad was busy with the factory, Mom, Isabella, and I went house hunting. Eventually, after screening, we settled on a villa community in the suburbs. This place was awkwardly positioned, initially not favored because it was near the highway and affected by train noise, which deterred wealthy buyers. Yet, it was priced high, unaffordable for the average person, and with that money, one could buy a house in the city. It was said that a newly rich developer who was conned into developing this villa community lost a large sum because of it. We were interested in this area because it was reputed to protect the privacy of its residents very well, with high walls and fences all around, and even rivers bordering two sides. It was nicknamed pure prison-style villas by some. I estimated that if used well in an apocalyptic scenario, the entire community could serve as a small fortress. Another advantage was its low population density. The fewer the people, the safer it was. That was the case here. Originally, not many people bought houses here, and later some moved away. Additionally, with its inconvenient transportation, the population density was much lower than surrounding areas. In an apocalypse with numerous zombies, they would chase after living humans and wouldn't randomly gather in less populated areas. So, a place like this had a much lower probability of being surrounded by hordes of zombies. When we visited the sales office, we learned that not every house came with a basement, and of the remaining houses, only one still had a basement. Dad looked at the location and shook his head, not taking it. "It's too close to the center, surrounded by neighbors on all sides, too dangerous," was his assessment. Despite not purchasing the house initially, Dad still had me and Mom go buy supplies and store them in a nearby warehouse we rented. "I have another idea for the house," Dad teased. Skeptical yet trusting, my mother and I followed through. While my sister firmly believed in Dad, we each had our tasks to perform. Mom, attentive to details, reminded us to prioritize daily necessities and even made a list. We purchased hundreds of items like clothing for all seasons, toilet paper, sanitary pads, soap, toothpaste, and more. Stockpiling food too early wasn't necessary as it could spoil. But daily necessities were not a concern. A few days later, the house was indeed ours. Dad got in touch with an old business associate. There are only a few wealthy folks around here, so a few calls and the house was bought. Dad boasted proudly. The second-hand house was located at the edge of the park, near a river and a hill on the other side, 2 underground levels. My sister exclaimed joyfully upon reading the message left by the previous owner. The previous owner had it rebuilt for their younger family members, but the train was too noisy, and the youngsters spent a lot of money on renovations. Due to unauthorized modifications, they had to compensate the property management a hefty sum and still couldn't sell it. Dad explained, "She must be really wealthy." My sister couldn't help but remark, "But now, the benefits are ours." I smiled. We couldn't wait to check out the house. With 2 underground levels and excellent ventilation, it was clear that the rich second generation knew how to indulge. The basement was far from the simple space the seller had described. It was practically a private club. Even better, the soundproofing was so effective that even if the stereo was blasting in the lower second level, it barely made a sound outside. My sister and I excitedly explored the house. We hit the jackpot. The upper 2 floors were simply decorated but stylish. The only downside was the too conspicuous basement entrance, which undoubtedly needed remodeling. Dad grimaced at the thought. "At least the money spent will be worth it." Now that the house was ready, the rest was easy. The underground area didn't need much attention. First, We had to find someone to discreetly remodel the entrance. This task was taken up by our parents, while my sister Isabella and I were assigned to stock up on supplies. With nearly a year until doomsday, we boldly declared ourselves young entrepreneurs and swept through various wholesale markets, having already bought plenty of daily necessities. My sister and I purchased more, including winter warmers and summer cooling patches. We held off on buying medicines due to their expiration risk, planning to buy them later. Since Mom mentioned solving the power issue during the renovation, we were also tasked with purchasing electrical appliances. We then bought several large batteries, induction cookers, deep fryers, fans, and more, all energy efficient. We even stocked up on energy-saving light bulbs. Just waiting to move everything into the renovated basement, the house's renovation took a full 4 months. During this time, Adrian, the jerk, contacted me numerous times. Even after I canceled my phone number, he tried to reach me indirectly through college friends. Having prepared for doomsday with my family, I harbored a thought. I truly despised Adrian, and fed up with his incessant pestering, I decided to take action. Revealing my identity to contact him was out of the question. But I could contact one of the 3 women he was seeing, Amelia. She was quite the catch, attractive, but often engaged in baffling actions, frequently ending up on the university's confession wall, daring to mess with someone like her. Adrian was indeed bold. Using a secondary account, I added Adrian's friend and then Adrian himself, found his intimate photos with Lily, and sent them straight to Amelia. Even through the internet, I could feel Amelia's rage. Casually mentioning that Lily might be pregnant, I revealed nothing about myself, then deleted my account and disappeared, figuring that Adrian's misdeeds being exposed was enough to deal with him. I put these matters behind me and continued preparing for doomsday with my family. They also successfully stirred up trouble. The buzz reached the short video platforms, making headlines like "Jerk juggles 3 women. Fails to mooch off lottery-winning ex-girlfriend and remains entangled with mistresses," stirred up quite a scene, which even my family and I couldn't help but follow closely. But let's not dwell on that for now. The entrance to the basement was cleverly relocated behind the staircase, seamlessly integrated into the wall, through thoughtful design. The wall was thickened and included some visual tricks to successfully conceal the space the entrance occupied above ground. Mom even had a custom metal bookshelf made and placed at various locations around the house. The other bookshelves were just for camouflage, but the crucial one was designed to fit snugly under the staircase, hiding the entrance effectively. In front of my sister and me, Mom slid the bookshelf open to go inside, and after she did something, we couldn't move the bookshelf at all. Dad, boasting on the side, said, "My wife is so meticulous." Coming up with the idea to place a secret latch in the corner to hook the bookshelf, Mom emerged from the entrance, slightly flushed. "Also, did you see the swimming pool outside? It's remodeled. Your father said building a reservoir would be too conspicuous, so he turned it into a swimming pool with pipes underneath, allowing us to use the water." I went out for a look. The pool wasn't big, slightly raised above the ground with a fence around it, which seemed superfluous but was enough to prevent any irrational wandering zombies from contaminating the water. Dad also mentioned that the house's drainage pipes were secretly connected to the water pipes, so we could store water through them if necessary. The house's old surveillance was untouched, but we added some pinhole cameras, all linked to the solar panels in the basement. Not too many, to avoid drawing attention, but upstream on that river outside, we installed 2 small domestic hydroelectric generators. As long as we don't waste electricity, we should have enough for a long time. Mom rambled on and on. As time passed, my predictions came true one by one, and our family was filled with a sense of urgency. However, after all the renovations, the above-ground house was quite disorganized, which according to Dad was intended to look like the renovation was still ongoing. This way, even if we were unlucky and someone else ended up living in our house, they wouldn't suspect anything. Now, with less than 6 months to the doomsday, we began moving supplies from the warehouse to the basement. My sister, who could drive a truck, took charge of this task. With so much to move, using a small car would be too conspicuous due to frequent trips. A truck was a better option. I even printed a flashy XX Renovations sticker for the truck to avoid drawing attention. Although surveillance was only present at key intersections and didn't monitor inside residents' homes, we still took precautions to remain undercover. Isabella praised my meticulousness. Handling the logistics personally was a must, so moving these supplies underground took quite some time. Old items were thrown out to make room for the new supplies, electronics were set up, and the daily necessities we prepared filled an entire room on the first underground floor. With just over 4 months left to doomsday, we began to expand our stockpiling efforts. First up were non-perishable foods like compressed biscuits, military rations, cured meats, and boxes upon boxes of instant noodles. Thanks to ample space, we started with at least 300 pounds of each item, storing them all in the food room on the second underground floor. Essential seasonings like oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar took up a third of another small room, which we filled completely. To maximize storage, Mom moved in to organize our supplies. The room for daily necessities was eventually cleared enough to fit 4 grown men standing. My sister and I hurried to restock and bought back a large amount of supplies. Then, it struck me to purchase firefighting equipment, fire extinguishers, fire axes, and gas masks, considering the dangers of fire underground. Additionally, I bought various repair tools like hammers, nails, and wires to deal with potential damage. We also acquired miscellaneous items like large folding buckets, water purifiers, stun guns, and even 3 extra pairs of glasses for my sister. 2 months before doomsday, it was almost time to stockpile another batch of food. We didn't stop until we had amassed over 500 pounds of vacuum-packed grains and flour, along with 100 barrels of water. We barely managed to fit everything in. We only bought canned fruits since we could directly load up on canned meat from the factory and transport them back. We filled 4 large freezers with fresh chicken, beef, pork, lamb, and vegetables. Additionally, to ensure we could enjoy fresh meat later on, we started raising Rhode Island chickens and rabbits. Rabbits, especially, breed prolifically and are relatively quiet, although they do have a strong smell, which is a minor issue that can be overcome. Moreover, we also ordered some mushroom spores and small greens online to grow ourselves. We also stockpiled various medications, including pain relievers, anti-inflammatory drugs, and some common cold treatments. As the time drew near, we finally had everything ready. The 2 underground levels were packed full with supplies. My father shut down the factory. The excuse had been planned long ago. He said that after many years of hard work, his health was deteriorating and he planned to go abroad for a rest. After hauling away the canned goods we needed, the remaining cans were distributed among the current and former factory workers as part of their severance package. Even if there was nothing left at home, the canned goods would be enough to last them a month if used sparingly. Many of these people have been with us since the beginning. It's only right to help them, my father said. For a few uncles and aunts who had been part of my life since childhood, my father gave them extra things. Using the excuse that we wouldn't see each other once we moved abroad, everyone knew my father had made some money over the years, and now that his youngest daughter had won a large lottery, it wasn't surprising that we decided to move abroad. Many sent messages wishing my father good health. Of course, while some were grateful, others were greedy. My biological uncle, my father's brother, years ago, when my father was starting his business, this uncle nearly caused him to lose everything and almost landed him in jail. Now, hearing about the factory closing and the distribution of goods to the workers, he shamelessly came asking for canned goods without intending to pay a cent. My father saw through his intentions at a glance. Without saying much, he refused to give them away for free but sold them at a low price to him. On the way home, he used that money to buy a trunk full of dried chicken and duck, along with a big bag of barbecue for us to enjoy that evening. With just 10 days left until the apocalypse, we weren't going to deny ourselves. Intending to relish our final days, my mother didn't get upset when she heard about the canned goods sold to my uncle. She just smiled, but my sister and I were furious. How could he let go of so many supplies so cheaply? We complained angrily. Self-inflicted woes cannot be lived with, was all our mother said. She didn't explain further, just told us to wait and see. In the days leading up to the apocalypse, we enjoyed the best of human society, eating and drinking merrily. For the last 5 days, we went into hiding, starting our life underground early. The apocalypse arrived unexpectedly for everyone, unless one had the gift of prophecy. The suddenness caught everyone off guard. It was a global catastrophe. A person, staggering along the roadside, Some people gave him a wide berth, while others, out of kindness, approached to offer help, but that person twitched oddly, making the Good Samaritans hesitate. Yet, it was too late to flee. In the next moment, the person lunged at them, screams echoing down the street. Soon, another person staggered to his feet to attack the next passerby. The crisis rapidly spread out of control. Cities around the world fell at an unbelievable pace. A tour bus was halfway through its journey when it encountered a crowd of these crazed beings attacking each other. The driver, in a panic, swerved the bus, steering it directly toward the nearest building to seek refuge. My family and I were in the basement. We constantly monitored various social media platforms. Just like in past lives, terms like cannibalism, zombie crisis, and Walking Dead instantly dominated the trending searches. Whether it was short video platforms or social media, it didn't matter. Discussions instantly focused on the unexpected disaster that had struck. Mother played a video showing a shaky camera capturing a young boy, unable to dodge in time, being attacked by a zombie that looked like a middle-aged man. By the time the person filming frantically fled, the boy had already turned into a zombie and began attacking others. The gory scenes made Mother retch, and Father turned his head away, unable to watch. Another video showed a zombie horde from an upstairs view, narrated by a mechanical, emotionless female voice. The apocalypse is really here. What do we do with only 2 packs of instant noodles at home? In the comments, someone mentioned being in the same situation with no stockpile of food, while another user boasted about having more supplies than they could use. I kept an eye on our security monitor, where everything appeared normal. As we expected, it would be a while before we saw a large number of zombies here. Plus, our location far from the community entrance gave us relative safety. My sister and I couldn't bear to watch the news anymore, and instead focused on finishing the fried chicken burgers we bought yesterday, savoring them as if they were our last. Meanwhile, our parents sighed and lamented the horrors of the apocalypse, but even so, they had no plans to contact the outside world. Since earlier, our phones had been ringing off the hook, but we all silently agreed to mute them and set them aside. The parents also deliberately used a spare phone without a SIM card to watch the news. Of course, my father received many messages thanking him for the last batch of supplies sent by the factory before it closed, but there was one exception. My so-called uncle was cursing up a storm. In just a few days, he had sold off a large quantity of canned goods, and now he was left guarding his money and facing hunger. He was now furiously berating us, asking why we hadn't given him more cans. Enough so he could never sell them all, so he wouldn't be left without any supplies. I finally understood what my parents meant. They knew this uncle too well. He only ever came to us in a rush if he was sure of a channel to sell the goods, and they had anticipated his impatience to sell them. But who forced him to sell those cans? If he hadn't been greedy, he wouldn't be breaking down and making a scene now. With that realization, I felt a sense of satisfaction. And the fried chicken tasted even better. Zombies arrived faster than we anticipated. A couple of women appeared on our security camera, likely our neighbors or from the property management, being chased. My sister was the first to notice. Our family gathered around the screen as we watched one woman, hindered by her high heels, quickly get overwhelmed. The other woman, wearing flats, didn't hesitate, as the zombie attacked her companion. She took advantage of the situation to grab a shovel lying outside a neighbor's yard. With a swift swing of the shovel, she decapitated the zombie. By then, her companion was motionless, her neck gruesomely disfigured, likely to turn into a zombie soon. After a moment's hesitation, the woman dealt with her fallen companion as well. She really has guts. I couldn't help but admire. Only such people are fit to survive the apocalypse. Now, as the apocalypse had just begun, most people would head straight to supermarkets for supplies, not thinking to scavenge private homes, and certainly not an unfinished house like ours, which made us relatively safe. In the afternoon, seeing that our parents had barely eaten, my sister and I decided to cook some hearty dishes: a clay pot of pork rib soup, braised beef, and dumplings, foods that used a lot of water, a luxury in the early days of the apocalypse. The warm meal diverted their attention from the crisis outside to our small, underground sanctuary. We really need to take care of each other, Mom sighed. We're already quite lucky, my sister added. The tender pork ribs and beef were quickly devoured, filling us with a palpable sense of survival. Alright, enough sentimentality. It's time to monitor the cameras. We need to watch out for zombies and people, Dad interjected. With 4 of us in the house, we divided the day into 4 shifts. Morning, afternoon, early night, and late night. I took the morning shift. Interestingly, aside from the initial zombie caught on our cameras, we hadn't seen any others enter our surveillance range. We suspected something unknown was happening in our community. Currently, this doesn't seem to be a bad thing. The power and water outage came faster than we expected. On the night the zombies appeared, the lights flickered out, and we lost electricity. We promptly switched to backup power. And from our surveillance, we could see that other houses in the community were all plunged into darkness. My sister tried the faucet and only a bit of residual water trickled out before stopping altogether. The darkness heightened our sense of hearing. We could faintly hear our own heartbeats and some distant sounds from outside. What does that sound like? An explosion? My mother asked in a low voice after listening intently for a while. My father and I did one last check of our entrances before sitting down. Our family's mattresses were not far apart, surrounded by supplies stacked nearly to the ceiling. We used the piles of supplies to create small partitions, giving us some privacy and space to move without being too cramped. Alright, those not on watch should rest early. Anything could happen outside. Let's be careful, my father said. I turned off the night light and lay in bed, with boxes of instant noodles next to me. I felt for the noodle boxes carefully, finding comfort in their presence before I could fall asleep. The outbreak of zombies still brought back memories of my life before rebirth. Even though it had been a long time, those memories still made my heart race. After a night of deep sleep, I took over the morning watch duty. There wasn't even time to eat the stir-fried pork my sister made as I immediately started monitoring the surveillance. Both my father and sister, who had been on watch all night, told me the same thing. Why are there no zombies? There are sounds of zombies outside, but none within the surveillance area. I stared intently at the surveillance. I didn't even notice when my sister and father went to catch up on some sleep. But indeed, there were no zombies all morning. No zombies appeared in any of the surveillance views. Instead, there were occasionally a few normal people passing by the cameras. Their expressions serious but not panicked, as if their lives were under threat. One girl even strolled leisurely past the camera. Something must have happened outside, like they've established a safe zone for themselves. I concluded after some thought. The appearance of zombies would normally cause panic, but these people's calmness suggested they had some form of protection. This area, known for its high-privacy villas, although not very popular, indeed offered good security with high surrounding walls and a heavy automated iron gate. If we could block the main gate and eliminate the initial zombies that breached it, then this place would become a natural safe haven. As long as there was enough food and we weren't besieged by a large number of zombies, these people could survive for a long time. That's very likely. My sister agreed with my speculation. My mother glanced at the monitor and handed me lunch, saying, "Then they've acted quickly. Doesn't that make us safer?" I frowned, not agreeing with her. My father also felt differently. I'd say we're in more danger. People are scarier than zombies. Zombies don't think or have greed. Zombies can't find our underground entrance. But if people are determined, we could be in trouble. Our suspicions were confirmed just after lunchtime, as more people started gathering in the surveillance footage. At first, it was just 1 or 2, then groups started to arrive, and soon there were about a dozen people at our gate. These people were dressed meticulously, unwilling to shed their dignity even in an apocalypse. Their pre-apocalypse statuses were probably not insignificant. They gathered with clear intent. I put down what I was doing and watched the surveillance footage with my mother. My mind was racing, trying to recall if there was any oversight in our preparations that had led these people to gather here, hesitating whether to wake up my sister and father. I realized that the people just gathered and then stopped any further actions. I reluctantly calmed myself and turned up the volume to hear what they were discussing. "Are there not enough people? Who hasn't shown up yet?" a middle-aged woman asked, her hands tucked into her sleeves, furrowing her brows. People nearby whispered among themselves, but no one stepped forward to speak. Despite some apparent tensions, they still gathered outside the small garden in front of our house. I observed their expressions closely, and indeed, they seemed to have a purpose. Several of them waited on the side, constantly glancing into our yard, their gazes fixated on the swimming pool used for storing water. My heart skipped a beat. but then I thought, if they were just after the water, it might not be too hard to handle. Moreover, these people were clearly wary of each other and did not seem very united. My mother and I were somewhat relieved but continued to keep an eye on them. After a while, a few more people arrived. I counted 32 in total, but that might not have been the exact number as some might not have shown up. A middle-aged man, dressed decently and looking like a leader, was the first to step forward. Now that everyone is here, let's discuss our current situation. The water has stopped, and I'm sure many of you have stored quite a bit, but we discovered a pool here today at noon. Need I say how precious water is? The man looked around at the crowd. And those who seemed restless calmed down a bit. That tourist group that barged in took over half of our residential area. We, the original residents, had no choice but to move further inside. During the previous conflicts, several families had their food stolen, so we must unite. My mother and I exchanged looks, realizing that the situation outside was more complicated than we had imagined. From their conversation, it seemed that tourists had invaded our residential area. There was conflict between the newcomers and the original residents, and it was highly likely that neither side intended to integrate. Now, the original residents were being forced to move further into the residential area, and there might still be conflicts between the two groups in the future. However, on the bright side, these residents were only forced to unite, and if they were internally divided, they would likely spend more time scheming against each other rather than searching houses like ours that weren't fully renovated. Then, a young woman stood up. So today, we all came here as witnesses. Previously, Mr. Zhang and Ms. Zhou testified that this family has been renovating and hasn't moved in yet, so now, this water is ownerless, and we shall divide it equally. Then, like the other houses with outdoor pools, in the coming days, we'll try to convert it into a reservoir. As these people concluded their discussion and started entering our yard, we had no choice but to wake up my resting sister and father. Water was indeed very precious. After discussing the current situation, we decided that while they drew water from above, we would quietly siphon some from below. As they took out buckets of water above, we slightly opened the tap below and kept collecting, working together. The pool was quickly emptied. These people didn't notice anything unusual. Their attention was more on whether anyone else was taking more or if they were getting less. At one point, two men started arguing, but it was quickly resolved by others mediating. Day 2 of the apocalypse, the community was not yet overrun. Our stored water had been divided among these survivors. Look on the bright side, I said with a wry smile, trying to lift the spirits of my somewhat disheartened family. These people want to turn our pool into a reservoir. When it rains one day and water is stored, we can still draw water from below. My sister had stayed up for the latter half of the night and was still very tired, rubbing her eyes. We also managed to take back a large bucket. Right, that should be enough. Plus, I checked the weather forecast before the apocalypse, and after this period of continuous high heat, there's bound to be a heavy rain. Rest assured, I'll go back to resting, I said. Father was somewhat worried. But after checking the entrance's protections again, he too went back to rest. Mother monitored the surveillance while I tidied up the stuff by my side, compressing packaging plastic waste as much as possible, planning to burn it when we had the chance. As for organic waste, it could be composted, so I took it to the vegetable growing room and buried it in the soil. I anticipated that the room might start to smell unpleasant, but we had no other choice at the moment. Mother listened in for a while longer. Some of the group had already left. However, there was still a group that seemed more united, discussing how to collect water and whether someone needed to stay in our house to oversee the water storage. They discussed for a long time but couldn't come to any conclusive strategy, and soon dispersed. Only then did I finally go to rest with ease, and Mother also relaxed somewhat, even managing to update our inventory records. They're just a loose group of individuals, nothing to fear, my sister commented. I felt the same way, especially seeing how they guarded against each other and conflicted over water distribution earlier that day. It was clear these people were not far from internal strife. In the following days, our family remained highly vigilant, constantly on guard against these survivors, but afterwards, things unexpectedly calmed down. 10 days later, a heavy rain finally fell. As usual, we stealthily collected some water. After the rain stopped, those people appeared for the first time in a while and divided the water cleanly among themselves. I carefully counted their numbers and was surprised to find several new faces, youths who hadn't been there before, yet the total number was nearly a dozen less than last time. Whether those who were missing were alive or dead was still unknown, after all. Our house was on the edge of the area, and even if something happened to those scattered people or they encountered outsiders, as they mentioned, it would be difficult for us to know. My parents were very pensive about my discoveries. Father examined the images of these people closely. They don't all look emaciated. Those who didn't come might not necessarily be dead, but my sister was skeptical. Several of them were injured. Those people are probably more dead than alive. There must have been conflicts among them, I added. Mother rambled. Maybe they fought with zombies. If they were injured fighting zombies, they might as well be considered dead, I said with a wry smile. In my previous life, although I was tormented by that despicable family, I had also seen starving neighbors attempt to find food. 2 went out, but only 1 returned, bringing back only a little food. I still remember his arm, mangled and bloody, after his family took him in. Cries of agony echoed from their home that night, so I knew all too well how infectious the zombie virus was. Father didn't join our argument, just pondered quietly. Before the apocalypse, he loved reading history books. In our basement, each of us had stored some items for passing time during the apocalypse, including books. For instance, I brought my collection of romance novels, my sister brought her sketchbooks, and father brought his beloved history books, covering nearly every dynasty. Father sighed deeply. Historical records mention many famines where people resorted to cannibalism. Our community seems safe now, but it's really like an isolated island, eventually running out of resources. When that time comes, these people will do anything to survive. Father didn't finish his thought, but we all knew what he meant. I turned on the radio, which was still broadcasting government emergency notices, recently including the nearest government safe zones and daily military rescue operations. Maybe they'll be rescued before anything else happens, I suggested. My sister pulled out a map, listening to the broadcast and marking it under the light. That's actually possible. Look, they've already reached the northern district. Although it's a large area, the search and rescue are fast. It probably won't be long before they reach us, she said, as long as nothing unexpected happens. Rescue coming here is just a matter of time, but Mother hesitated, clearly torn about wanting to join the rescue. No, we can't leave. Father was the first to object. We can move, but our supplies can't, and even if we take them, we can't protect such a large amount. Possession of treasures makes one liable to attack. Just look at these survivors, fighting over a bit of water. In a more populated safe zone, we'd likely face even greater danger. My sister and I quickly nodded in agreement, eager to dissuade our mother from her thoughts. Upon reflection, Mother calmed down. It's safer for us to stay here. Going out would be too risky. With that, any last hesitations, Mother had disappeared. She began paying more attention to the government broadcasts about the movements of large groups of zombies, rather than the rescue efforts. Little did we know, just after discussing this, our place would no longer be safe the next day. After dawdling for several days, 2 men were finally sent to live in our house to guard the water storage. They appeared one afternoon. I was resting at the time, but once these 2 arrived, none of us could rest anymore. We all concentrated intensely on the surveillance monitors. Both men were thin, one slightly taller and the other a bit shorter, with the shorter one looking younger. When they arrived, they brought some food, though not much. Only after arriving did they realize our home was half finished. Without even a mattress, they cursed a few times before leaving to gather some living supplies. Even when they left, they carried food with them, not daring to let their guard down. This time, other survivors helped them bring things back, 2 mattresses and some simple bedding. The other survivors quickly left after dropping off the items. Fortunately, from start to finish, they never noticed the bookshelf behind the stairs, which was our hidden entrance, after the others left. The 2 men didn't bother wandering around. They just sat on the mattresses and chatted. We had anticipated this situation since they had mentioned before that someone would be sent to watch the place. We had already reinforced the entrance and piled heavy objects behind it. Even if discovered, these people wouldn't be able to get in quickly, and even if these 2 found it, they might not report it to the others, if they got greedy, hoping to monopolize the contents of our basement. We could quickly deal with them without alerting anyone else. For this plan, We also gathered many handy tools like knives, axes, and baseball bats. At that moment, the two men on the monitor were sharing a piece of bread, chatting. "That Sue guy is terrible, giving us so little supplies and still expecting us to listen to him." The shorter one was also very annoyed. "And his lover, Ligia. She panders to Sue and gets so much in return, just look at how much she got." My family and I exchanged glances and gathered around the monitor to eavesdrop on their conversation. This was a rare insight into the external situation. The two continued to complain in the monitor. The taller one said, "In my opinion, Sue is just a coward, only acting tough in front of us. That travel group took over our big area and even stole our homes, and all he does is talk about negotiating." The shorter one chimed in, "A greedy and lustful man. If it wasn't for him, we'd still be in our own homes, because he's a coward." As soon as the travel group came, he retreated. "Now we've lost our house and got kicked here to watch this lousy water tank and guard against zombies." As expected, these survivors had experienced conflicts, and these two were unlucky enough to have lost their homes in the process. "Forget it, bro. Didn't Sister Lee say that the rescue team mentioned on the radio is almost here? We just need to endure a bit longer and then we can follow them," said the shorter one. "You're right. If only there were a safe zone in our suburban area, maybe we could have met the rescue team when the apocalypse started." The one called Brother sighed. "Our family learned from the broadcast that the situation in the safe zone is more informed than that of the two individuals. We are just a small town, not as equipped as the cities. Fortunately, we are close to Y City, and there is a safe zone between the city and our town, which is currently responsible for rescuing the area we are in. The efforts are mainly focused on searching for survivors and desperately seeking supplies. The number of people in the safe zone is still increasing. The safe zone not only needs to protect the civilians but also fend off zombies, making supplies crucial." The broadcasts had also advised survivors to try to protect themselves by leaving conspicuous markers like flags at their hiding spots, to help rescue teams locate them. However, the daily updates from the broadcast also include areas that are dangerous due to reasons other than zombies. A few days ago, a rescue team was attacked by an armed survivor in a supermarket, resulting in severe casualties and loss of equipment. The supermarket was then declared by the broadcast as a place to avoid. This incident has left me somewhat worried. While we are cautious of other survivors on the ground, I still hope that they can be rescued. This would mean safety for them and us as well. But such attacks on rescue teams show that the apocalypse has greatly intensified the darker side of human nature. Can the rescue team, facing enemies on all sides, still manage to reach us? I'm not so sure. Inside the house, the shorter one cherished his bread and only sipped a little water from a mineral water bottle. "I hope we can hold out until the rescue." By the way, didn't Uncle who collaborate with a travel group in the past? There was no follow-up when you went to see them yesterday. The taller one scoffed. "I nearly lost my life. The travel group is indeed ruthless. They organized people to go out and gather supplies. As long as they make some noise to temporarily draw the zombies away, they can run out to look for supplies, but once they're out, their lives are in their own hands." The shorter one widened his eyes. "They wouldn't use us as cannon fodder, would they?" "Everyone is cannon fodder, as long as they can bring back supplies. It doesn't matter who dies. They also bring back survivors from outside. Those who make it back are the lucky ones. If something goes wrong on the way, they just push the survivors they brought back out to save their own lives." The taller one added, "The Who family members who made it back are indeed lucky, but they're not good people. They were all friendly and brotherly with our dad when doing business. Now that it's just us brothers left, he immediately turned hostile. So this is really about brotherhood." I silently listened to their conversation, but afterward, there wasn't much useful talk, besides reminiscing about the past and how different it was from the present. The older brother kept warning the younger one not to trust anyone outside. I patiently listened for a while before going back to rest. When dinner time came, my mother also mentioned that the two hardly moved about, only locking the doors and windows tightly. They went out once, brought back some food, and that was it. I really didn't expect it. They seemed so disunited, but they still managed to share the food, my sister said, surprised. They said their house had been looted. Maybe the original supplies were gone too. Talking about sharing food seems more like paying them wages for their work, my father said. With people overhead, We couldn't afford to be too boisterous, each of us just had a bowl of instant noodles. Even so, our meal was still much more substantial than the two above, who only brought back a few dry buns and still couldn't bear to finish them all. At night, when they slept, we were even more cautious. Their mattresses were directly on the floor, and any noise could travel up the concrete walls. Days like this continued for nearly 20 days. During that time, they showed interest in the metal bookshelves in the villa. Luckily, all the bookshelves were fixed and immovable, and their suspicion wasn't aroused. It was a nerve-wracking time for our family, but fortunately, each time was just a false alarm. Over these 20 days, the situation has gradually started to worsen. Now, more than 2 months since the apocalypse began, the broadcast rescue teams are getting closer, but so are the zombies. The search and rescue team's progress is painfully slow, and their efforts to thoroughly search the area are lacking. Whether they will be able to reach our residential area remains uncertain. On another note, there's an issue with the two brothers. Their food supply is dwindling, although there was a slight rain recently that allowed everyone to collect some water. The fact remains that food is becoming scarce. 3 days ago, the two brothers were involved in a conflict among the survivors. The tourist group not only maintained its original numbers but also brought in additional survivors from outside. The locals were utterly defeated. From their conversations, it became clear that not only did some locals join the tourist group, but a significant portion of their food was also taken. After that conflict, the two brothers began planning to seek out the rescue team. However, the older brother was injured, so they planned to recover first. Our family was relieved. Their departure would make things easier for us. Ever since the apocalypse, the weather has been extraordinarily erratic. Around midnight, a loud clap of thunder woke me from a light sleep, with no distinction between day and night underground, and my irregular sleeping patterns. My sleep was already troubled. After being startled awake, I found myself unable to fall back asleep. My sister was monitoring the surveillance cameras, so I joined her. The camera installed outside the wall captured zombies attracted by the thunder, running chaotically under the flashing lightning. Although our basement was very safe, I still felt a wave of fear. My sister comforted me by patting my back and popping a piece of candy into my mouth. "Have something sweet, it'll make you feel better." I couldn't taste anything, but I suddenly noticed something unusual on one of the screens. "Sis, is that a person in the footage?" My sister checked the screen, and indeed, a person was braving the rain, heading our way. "Is it a zombie?" I exclaimed. "She's using her hand to shield from the rain, and there's warmth. It's a person." My sister was much calmer than me. As the figure approached, I could see it was a tall young woman. The woman, drenched, knocked on our door. The two brothers in the room woke up startled. Their first instinct was to grab the iron rods beside them, very cautious. Unsure if it was a person or a zombie outside, they approached the door silently. The older brother neared the door, while the younger one peeked out the window. "Alex, open the door." The woman outside wasn't loud, her voice trembling, her face full of panic. Realizing it was a person outside, the older brother relaxed slightly. The younger brother gestured at one with his hand, indicating to his brother that there was only one person outside. The two exchanged glances, pondering for a moment before slightly opening the door. Even with the door open, they still held their weapons. "What's the matter, Andrew?" the older brother asked. "Let me in first, then I'll explain," the woman said. "You first." The older brother refused to let her in, while the younger brother kept a vigilant watch outside. "Stop looking. There's no one else. I came alone," Andrew insisted. "We go way back. That's why I came to you." I saw through the monitor that the younger brother was visibly moved, but the older brother remained in front, even subtly kicking his brother to stay alert. "There's trouble outside. Those people have gone mad. They want to eat people. My aunt covered for me so I could come find you," Andrew said, her voice shaking even more. Through the monitor, I could see the shock in the brother's eyes, and of course, mine and my sister's behind the monitor. "Come in." The older brother finally allowed her in, and the three of them sat down on the floor, and the woman began to slowly explain the situation. My sister and I finally understood what had been happening outside. Originally, everything was peaceful here, but the tourist group was too large and consumed a lot of food. They went out daily to gather supplies. I only found out after I inquired that they placed strongly scented items near the main gate to mask the smells of our community. Even the roots of the walls along the streets were covered to hide human scent. It seemed like a good solution at first, but it was never a long-term strategy. The supermarkets and other supply spots were soon emptied, then the residential areas were targeted. They would bring back survivors, but in reality, each outing would attract some zombies. Zombies, lacking intelligence, would just wander around the vicinity, gathering in increasing numbers until even those people dared not venture out. If people didn't go out, we were just sitting ducks, consuming our reserves. Initially, both sides cooperated for the sake of supplies. Although unity was lacking, people reluctantly teamed up for food, but now no one wants to be cannon fodder. With no food, we had to think of other solutions. In fact, a few days ago, they had already started. Andrew's voice grew heavier as he spoke. My aunt and I were unaware of this, but she was assigned to check on the vegetable plots. One day, while people were picking vegetables, my aunt greeted them and headed back. Halfway home, she remembered she forgot her hat. When she returned, she overheard that the vegetables were being picked for consumption. Andrew's voice trembled with fear. We didn't believe it initially, but now no one goes out for supplies anymore. Yet people still disappear. I haven't seen Grandma for 3 days. And Alex was missing at dinner today. My aunt began to feel that something was wrong. Today, she even started to count the population, ostensibly to prepare for rescue, but she secretly asked me to find you tonight. Andrew became agitated. My aunt said we can only trust you. We need to run fast, or we'll be in danger. But, my brother was about to speak when he was interrupted. We grew up together. You have to believe me. Andrew was nearly crying. I do believe you, actually. We also felt something was off recently and were planning to escape, but it's indeed very risky with so many of us, my brother finally said. The three then discussed how to escape from the clutches of these survivors. With little information from the outside, they only knew that the woman and the aunt had discovered that the leaders among the survivors were subtly monitoring everyone else. The situation with the tourist group was also chaotic, as disputes arose between the survivors they had rescued and the original members of the group. However, the trio focused solely on how to escape and from which direction. No more information was available after that. As my sister saw me nodding off while listening, she urged me to rest, and we agreed to exchange information over breakfast the next day. Breakfast was the usual beef instant noodles, convenient and quick, without the risk of being discovered. After discussing last night's events with our parents, they sighed, foreseeing the impending chaos outside. It's wise for those few to attempt an escape, but it's going to be tough out there, my father said. My mother remained silent, only to suddenly ask after finishing her noodles, will they end up turning on each other and hunting for survivors? I suddenly realized that if they did turn on each other, with some hiding and others hunting, could they possibly find us if they dug deep enough? Don't think too much, my father comforted us. Once these people leave, everyone will know that no one originally lived here. Plus, we don't have much to hide, so there's no reason for them to come here. I took solace in my father's words. The next day, it rained continuously, but someone came to fetch water, and the aunt appeared as well. A few people chatted briefly in private. The aunt was against running away. She planned to pretend to escape, gather the last bits of supplies, and hide them here. This elder still wanted to wait for rescue. From below, our family watched everything unfold. My sister and I made a bet on which strategy they would choose. I leaned towards hiding and waiting for rescue since the broadcast continuously mentioned that the search and rescue teams were getting closer. It seemed too risky for these people to go out. My sister felt that, given the current situation, rather than hiding here and waiting to die, leaving turned out to be a path to survival. We initially thought it would take them a few days to act. Unexpectedly, they finished their discussions on the first day, outlined their action plan on the second, and by the third day, they were on the move. They decided to leave, but it wasn't a death sentence. They planned to find a safe spot nearby to hide, preferably somewhere close to where the rescue teams would arrive. To my surprise, Auntie managed to gather quite a lot of fresh vegetables, and the brothers somehow found a lot of food, enough to last them many days. They left the villa soon after and never returned. Watching their figures disappear from the surveillance camera, I couldn't help but admire them. Although compelled, their courage to face the apocalypse head-on was something our family lacked. 11. Their disappearance was quickly noticed. By evening, several people violently broke into the house, meticulously searching every possible hiding spot. But they found no trace of them. Listening to their curses, it was clear that the four had taken nearly half of the food, but my sister was skeptical. Who knows if it was half the food? Surely many people have stashed some away. I suspect that after the food was stolen, panic spread, and chaos ensued. 2 days later, a man sneaked in with some food in the morning. Just as I happened to be watching the surveillance, a middle-aged man, he took the food up to the attic, then climbed out a window and onto the roof. Our house is quite secluded, and not many venture this way, so we remain largely unaware of what happens outside, but we weren't too curious about the outside world. As long as our family was safe, that was enough. After the brothers left, we, who hadn't had a hot meal in a long time, joyfully made chicken soup and spicy rabbit meat. Celebrating the departure of our dangerous neighbors, however, just a few days later, the middle-aged man returned. For safety, we decided to stick to instant food. He didn't hide for long. He was discovered here the very next day. I have no doubt that someone was specifically searching for him. The food was taken, and the man met his end under a knife, leaving a large pool of dark red blood at our doorstep. The sight of blood made my mother vomit, but after that day, no one else came to our house. For the first few days, I still saw people occasionally passing by the corners on the surveillance, but then even they disappeared. I even wondered if everyone had died or had been rescued. My sister advised me not to think too much. We couldn't control what happened above ground from our underground shelter. As I marked the days off on the calendar, time swiftly passed by, but the rescue team never arrived. It wasn't that they gave up on rescuing, rather, there was no longer any need for it. In the middle of the night, I was woken up not by thunder, but by the sound of running, not just one or two individuals, but a massive horde. The zombies had breached our location before the rescue team did. The broadcasts had been warning us. The increasing visibility of zombie hordes made this fall somewhat expected, even later than I had anticipated. The howling, the running, and the terrifying sight of a sea of people in the surveillance made me cover my head with a blanket in fear. But even in sleep, those images haunted my dreams. When I woke up the next day, I had huge dark circles under my eyes. That day, our family was very silent. Although the people above might not have been good, they struggled hard in the apocalypse, only to die silently amidst a horde of zombies. Even my father couldn't help but hold our hands, and we embraced as a family. An unspoken silence. Unexpectedly, just 3 days later, the rescue team's helicopter arrived. The helicopter circled overhead repeatedly, and through its speakers, it kept shouting, "Are there any survivors?" But the only responses were the howls of zombies. Faced with a massive horde of zombies, even the rescue team dared not confront them directly and had to return without success. Just 3 days short, I felt a mix of emotions, since there were no survivors above. Our lives underground had become safer. The scent of living blood is what truly attracts zombies. Other smells don't lure them. We could even barbecue underground without agitating the zombies. Of course, we wouldn't go as far as to barbecue, but life has indeed become more comfortable. At the very least, every few days, we could cook a hot meal instead of subsisting on biscuits and instant noodles daily. The nearest safe zone to us and another slightly further one kept broadcasting updates about the surrounding zombie hordes, including rescue efforts. The ongoing rescues had resulted in heavy losses for the rescue teams, significantly slowing down their progress. Fortunately, there weren't many areas left awaiting rescue, and the preliminary rescue operations were expected to be completed within a month at most. The broadcast also revealed some worrying news. Among the gathering hordes of zombies, a leader akin to an alpha in a troop of monkeys had emerged. While the broadcasts shied away from using the term zombie king, it was clear that the zombies were beginning to organize. The broadcast also mentioned that it was currently unclear whether the zombies had developed intelligence. They urged everyone to stay safe and avoid being seen by zombies. The evolution of zombies had surpassed what I knew in my previous life. Or rather, I had not survived long enough to witness this evolution last time. In the days that followed, our family continued to take turns monitoring the surveillance cameras. Ironically, with no survivors left but us, life became much easier. After all, zombies weren't smart enough to rummage through things or locate our entrance. However, my mother remained worried because during one of her shifts monitoring the cameras, She spotted a zombie that seemed to be consciously looking around. But considering the current level of zombie evolution, they were probably only capable of learning to observe. After all, that zombie just looked around briefly before wandering off again. Half a year passed without us realizing it. The broadcasts reported that the national rescue operations were nearly complete, with preliminary counterattacks already underway in some of the earlier finished areas. Sometimes, I would think about the brothers who once lived in our house. And the young woman and her aunt. I wondered if they had managed to escape and reach a safe zone. Zombie hordes came and went above us. Half a month ago, a zombie fell into our water reservoir. Although it quickly climbed out, we dared not drink the water anymore. Fortunately, we could use the drainage pipes temporarily, although we could only collect water when it rained, but we had stored plenty of water, so there was no immediate water crisis, although I had never liked keeping a diary. I began to do so. Even though there wasn't much to write about, I diligently recorded my daily thoughts and feelings. My sister was binge-watching TV shows, and my bored father took to looking at the art books and novels my sister and I had brought down. My mother, out of nowhere, started a cross-stitch project, casually stitching whenever she rested. God knows, she had never touched needlework before. When I was little, I accidentally tore a new skirt, and I was both upset and sad. My mother volunteered to sew it for me, but she ended up stitching a large, black centipede onto the white skirt, making it even uglier. Young as I was, I cried my heart out. In the end, we just bought another new skirt to resolve it. What should we do? I was in a panic. They're not going to bomb us, are they? It's okay, it's okay. Our walls are reinforced with steel plates, all fortified. My father was also somewhat flustered, but he managed to maintain his composure. We dragged some of the food from the first floor down to the second basement level until there was no room left. I had even mentally prepared myself for the possibility of being buried alive. Although I don't actually believe in religion, I've always worn a jade Buddha around my neck. At this moment, I couldn't help but clutch the pendant tightly, pleading to any divine being that might exist to protect our family at this critical time. My whole body trembled with fear as the emergency broadcast escalated in urgency. Even interspersed with pleas for assistance, my sister, overwhelmed by anxiety, simply turned off the radio. Fortunately, we were spared from the bombing. It hardly affected our area. However, the nearby safe zone wasn't as lucky. After enduring a grueling battle that lasted 5 days and 4 nights, a horde of zombies had formed. Once the horde formed, it immediately began to move, and our house was unfortunately in its path. Through our surveillance, we watched helplessly as the zombies approached and buildings crumbled like paper mache in their presence. The advancing horde flattened all the buildings in its path, leaving nothing behind. Thankfully, our basement had a double-layered entrance. Pushing aside a bookshelf revealed a small space, and only by opening the steel plate on the floor could one descend further. This design saved us. We used the steel plates prepared in the basement to seal the entrance, reinforcing it and blocking it with various items to prevent zombies from suddenly breaking through. Above us, the roar of the advancing zombies meant our surveillance was gone. We could no longer tell the time outside, relying only on our phones and an alarm clock to keep track of time. The movement of the horde lasted for 2 whole days. Even in my sleep, I could hear their footsteps echoing in my dreams. None of us dared to turn on the radio. We couldn't bear to think about the state of the safe zone, nor could we bear to imagine what we would do if we turned on the radio only to find the signal from the safe zone had completely vanished. On the 3rd day, the sound of the horde receded. After much hesitation, my father turned on the radio. Hiss, 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 just static. Our hearts sank, no signal whatsoever. We switched to another safe zone's frequency. This time, we finally heard human voices. Albeit intermittent and not bearing good news, but it was the best comfort for our family, knowing that there were still people alive. The losses are severe. We survived, not because we are strong, but because we were not in the path of the horde. Our comrades have sacrificed themselves. The North safe zone has fallen, but we have no time to mourn. The safe zone is severely damaged and must be repaired promptly, or it will not withstand another zombie attack. Survivors of the safe zone. Our survival is both luck and hope. As long as there are people alive, humanity has a future. We must unite and face this disaster together. The somber broadcast echoed in the basement. 1 year post-apocalypse, the North safe zone, annihilated. We haven't seen the sun outside for a long time. After the horde passed, our surveillance was destroyed, but thankfully we still had electricity, enough for our daily needs. Just in case, we still generated electricity daily with a pedal-powered generator. A year later, humanity began to counterattack. The only way we could learn about the outside world was through the radio. For instance, in the South, humans successfully eliminated a small zombie horde for the first time. For instance, a large-scale zombie wave is forming to the east. The surrounding government safe zones are collaborating to eliminate the threat in stages, nipping the danger in the bud. There's both good news and bad news. Other safe zones have been requesting help from ours. And although assistance is usually sent, sometimes the help provided is too little to make a significant difference, and there have even been instances where the rescue teams have perished in battle. The initial broadcasts were a mix of joy and sorrow. Gradually, the good news started to outweigh the bad. Finally, a year and a half into the apocalypse, the broadcasts announced that a vaccine had been developed and efforts were being accelerated to create an agent that would target and neutralize the zombie virus, aiming to eradicate the walking dead outside. On that day, my father found some bottles of red wine that had been stored away for a long time. As we enjoyed the wine with hot dishes, we toasted to the dawn that was soon to arrive. Not long after, a second, smaller zombie wave passed right over us. The newly developed agent, which had just been put into experimental use, was urgently dispatched to our safe zone. It was a great victory. The zombies have lost their mobility. Their movements have become extremely slow. The agent is effective. The agent is effective. Even though we didn't witness it firsthand and only heard about it through the broadcast, it was enough to lift our spirits. For the first time since the apocalypse began, there was real hope. However, it's always darkest before the dawn. The sheer number of zombies made it difficult for the supply of the agent to keep up, especially since it was a time when zombies tended to gather in large groups. We could only learn from the broadcasts that the agent was being urgently sent to those safe zones under attack. The final battle between humans and monsters was nearly broadcast live, marking the largest zombie wave since the apocalypse began. Humans brought out both gunpowder and the corrosive agent. The fierce battle lasted 3 days. I will never forget the last day. The words from the broadcast: humanity has won, the zombie wave has been eradicated. Then came the regional disinfection efforts, with various safe zones cooperating and forming a network to eliminate any remaining scattered zombies. It was a beautiful day. Someone knocked on the iron gate of our entrance. Is anyone there? Are there any survivors? Terrified, our family hid. The clearing operations in our city had been proceeding smoothly, but we were unsure who was outside. When the door was opened, the long-absent sunlight warmly poured in. A young man jumped down, his green military uniform dazzling in the sunlight. We are from the 5th Squad of the Zombie Extermination Team. The clearing operations in the city are complete, he said. We emerged from the darkness to the surface. Good thing the detection machines found people down here. Your entrance was blocked by a large piece of broken wall. It took us a while to open it. Another young man with equipment laughed. It's good to be alive, they said. Yes, it's good to be alive. Although surrounded by ruins, bathing in the long-lost sunlight moved me to tears. It's good to be alive. After the clearing operations in our city were completed, it was all about strict defense to prevent zombies from other areas from wandering in. Our family and other survivors threw ourselves into the frenzied construction efforts. My sister joined the patrol team. I joined the construction team, and my parents signed up for logistics. The construction was in full swing, and when the last zombie in the country was killed, the nation celebrated, and our teams were given a half-day off. After work, I brought home food I had bought, and hot meals were prepared on the table. With my sister busy in the kitchen, Mom and Dad said they have a surprise for us. My sister started, but before she could finish, our parents came back from outside, for brand new clothes were brought out. We changed clothes and took a family photo to commemorate this unforgettable day. In such a catastrophe, the fact that our family had all survived was already a blessing enough.